Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Tirobhava Mahamahotsav ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Tirobhava Mahamahotsav ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesa Sunyavadi Pasyatyadi Satarine. I offer my most respectful obeisances to Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajikacharya Stotra Satyasi Srimad Abhayacharanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is very dear to Krishna and who has established this Krishna consciousness all over the Western world. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in this material world out of his causeless mercy. And as Srila Narottam Das Thakur stated, Golokira Premadana Harinam Sankirtana. He brought, in the form of Harinam Sankirtan, he brought Golokira Premadana. He brought the wealth of love of God, of Golok, of the spiritual world. And so, the greatest miracle was taking place. This transcendental treasure was well preserved in Parampara. Various great acharyas were carefully preserving the purity of that treasure. And then the time arrived for fulfilling the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prithivityache yatanada gradi gram sarvada prachara hoebe moranam. That in every town and village of the world, the holy name would be sung and heard. On the 1st of September 1986, under a jackfruit tree, Srila Prabhupada appeared in Calcutta, just near Mahatma Gandhi Road. And right there where the temple of Radha Govinda was being maintained by the Malik family, Prabhupada grew up at the feet of Radha Govinda. His father, a Vaishnava. His father did not want to send his son to England to become a barrister, a lawyer. No, that was the common practice, but said then he will become a meat eater and an alcohol drinker. No, he did not send. He did give his son a good education. He studied in Scottish Church College. Oh yes. And Prabhupada remembered and would sometimes quote his professor. Sometimes also wrong. Women have 32 ounces of brain substance and men 64. No. That was Professor Urquhart's voice. But Prabhupada, he trusted, because education is meant to be like that. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarsiyo vidu. It is meant to be trustworthy. It is meant to be coming down in disciplic succession unaltered. And yet, each acharya may add a contribution. Undoubtedly. But the same Siddhanta, that very same conclusion passed on from generation to generation. Prabhupada carried it across the ocean. He was prepared. He had prepared Srimad Bhagavatam. First canto, he had with him in 3 parts, and that was the foundation. He was preaching on the strength of Srimad Bhagavatam. Undoubtedly, knowing very well that this world is totally misguided and misdirected, and that Srimad Bhagavatam would be the solution to society at large. Srila Prabhupada then came to preach the message of Srimad Bhagavatam. In his introduction to Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada writes that Srimad Bhagavatam is dedicated to Param Satyam. After all, in the first verse of Bhagavatam we are hearing Param Satyam Dimahi, to meditate on Param Satyam, on the absolute truth. And then Srila Prabhupada explained, and he said, and the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam is to establish that Param Satyam is Parameshwar, or that the absolute truth, the supreme absolute truth, means Parameshwar, the supreme controller. And Prabhupada says, when we say Param Satyam, it is not clear who we are referring to. Whether we are referring to a personality, or whether we are referring to the all-pervading energy of the Supreme Lord. But when we are speaking of Parameshwar, it is crystal clear. Ishvara means personality. And therefore the purpose of Srimad Bhagavatam is to establish that the Param Satyam is Parameshwar, that the absolute truth is the supreme controller, Sri Krishna. And that is the message, the transcendental message, right there in the very first verse. Jamadhyasiyatun vyatitaratasthate swabhikya swaratene brahmaridaya adikavaye muyanti atsuryaha tejo varimrdam yatavini meyo yatatri sargamisatam nisvena sada nirastakukam satyam param dimahi. That Krishna is the origin of everything in the independent. All living beings but independent. All living beings, even the demigods, are covered by the illusory energy. But this Srimad Bhagavatam offers us the supreme absolute truth. It lifts that veil of illusion. As is said in Bhagavad Gita, Naham prakasa sarvasa yoga maya samavrita. Everything covered by a veil of illusion. Everything covered by fog, the fog of sinful reactions. But that fog can easily be dissolved by the power of devotional service. Saivam pursa paru dharmo yato bhakt adoksaje ahaitikya patiyata yatma supersidate. Only devotional service, only pure devotional service can satisfy the heart, and nothing else. And Prabhupada, with firm faith, with very firm faith in those words, came to the Western world, not intimidated by the glitter, not intimidated by the air of self-confidence of New York, Oh, we know it all, seen it all, done it all. We're from New York. Yes, very good. But none of you are happy. And in this way, Prabhupada had firm faith. He had no doubt. He did not fall for all the facades, for all the so-called success. He knew. This is simply illusion. He would hear the big American cars, 8 cylinders, drive past, and he would imitate the noises. Whoosh! Big powerful cars. And Prabhupada said, they're traveling at neck-breaking speed, but they're not making any progress. They're not making any progress. Prabhupada made it clear. Why have you come to America? To teach you what you have forgotten. Prabhupada came to teach the world what we had forgotten. How to be happy. That there actually was a way out. Many of us, somehow or other, found ourselves in the material world. We found ourselves in a life that we had not asked for. We found that we were being educated in things that we didn't want to know. We found that we were being groomed to work in a job that didn't really attract us. We were looking, is this really it? Is this what life is about? Yes. This is it. Here is your happiness. And everyone was telling us, it's the real thing. Rubbish. Advertisement. So many things being sold. Yes. In my school, there was someone with a bowler hat and a briefcase selling the drugs. Yes, everywhere. A generation was not satisfied. A generation was looking for answers, but didn't know where to find. Some had gone to India, and those early visitors of India, they brought back ganja. They brought back hashish. And that was everywhere. And people smoked hashish, marijuana, and it became in the 60s, virtually speaking, you could not step into a room or people were smoking. There was incense all around the room and they were smoking. Any young people, wherever you would go. When I traveled through Europe, everywhere. Some places more hidden, some places less hidden. It was at that time when the youth was looking and the youth was not satisfied when Prabhupada came. Prabhupada somehow or other did not compromise. Prabhupada did not flatter. Prabhupada did not say what people wanted to hear. He just said it as it was. Straight. 1, 2, 3, 4. What are we fighting for? Not going to Vietnam. Well, you may not be wanting to go to Vietnam, but Arjuna should fight. What? Yes, Arjuna should go to war. This Prabhupada was not shying away. And LSD, it is rubbish. Not everyone was thinking like that. Some thought that LSD must be a particle of the lotus feet of Radharani. It was everywhere. If you didn't try it, you had lost out. You had just missed out on a whole generation. And you didn't know what was going on, therefore you were irrelevant if you didn't take it. And Prabhupada dealt with that. Prabhupada dealt with people who were stoned, who were tripping. But he didn't care. He just brought in the holy name. So we see in the early Matchless Gift storefront a lot of influence of drug-induced creativity. When one takes such drugs, the mind becomes very creative. So people were like talking about the universe, the cosmic energy, and things like this. Prabhupada brought it down. Prabhupada showed that devotional service was as much present on earth as it was in the sky, as it was in outer space. Just here on earth, cleanliness, just clean the floor, just sweep the floor, just keep the body clean, keep the heart clean by chanting simply here on earth. Very practical. A lot of people have become disconnected. Many sort of thought they would leave the world and then join the temple, only to find that the temple was very engaged with the world, that it wasn't at all turned away from the world, but that Prabhupada's movement was extremely practical and just dealing with the world. And people who had sort of thought they would give up the world found themselves on the street. First, just Harinam parties with magazines, then books. And just on the street, dealing with the world, actively changing the world, working hard, working constantly, tirelessly. And Prabhupada created this movement. This movement was a movement, a revolutionary movement, from day one. In that Prabhupada movie, there's this one scene, and which I like, where Rukmini is speaking. And Rukmini is saying, and Prabhupada would say, Gaurasundar, you go there and open a temple. And he'd say, every one of you can open a temple. And then she said, she was 17. And she said, even the girls? And Prabhupada said, there is no difference on the spiritual platform. Even the girls. And it was like a handful of very young people, around 20, and just go open a country. Go open a country. Purijan was sent to Hong Kong. He joined in 1967. Sent to Hong Kong. All alone in Hong Kong. At one point, Prabhupada was in Australia and Purijan rocked up in Australia. Prabhupada straight away said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Why are you not in Hong Kong?" I said, "I wanted to see you. I felt lonely." Prabhupada said, "You go back to Hong Kong and I'll send you a wife. Then you won't be lonely." And she arrived 2 weeks later. He picked her up from the airport and she said, "Pleased to meet you. I'm your wife." And that was it. And they're still married after all these years. Prabhupada would just send just one person, one couple. Go do something. Go do something. It's not about you, your Krishna consciousness. What is the most suitable servant for your service, for your psychophysical nature? Did you get your psychological report? Did we analyze your particular inclinations? Are you feeling comfortable in this service? No. Go open up a country. A country. A country. Take a country. A country? Yes, and make it Krishna conscious. Oh yes, Tamal Krishna, go buy that land in Mayapur and don't come back until it's done. Tamal didn't come back. 6 days passed. 6 days. Prabhupada was pacing up and down on the veranda in Calcutta. Some brahmachari was snoring. It was late night. And Prabhupada was not translating, and yet he was awake. He was waiting. What could have happened? Maybe they got robbed. Maybe something went wrong. It's dangerous in that district. Then Tamal Krishna Maharaj arrived and said, "Prabhupada, the land is yours." It was not easy. It was not easy. There was politics. There were people who were trying to stop it. But somehow or other, there was no question. There was no question. There was no argument. There was no discussion. There was no but how are we going to do this? I don't know. It must be done. That's it. Everything was like that. It must be done. Chaitanya Charitamrita, we can do 1 volume every 2 months. What? I want 17 volumes in 2 months. Impossible. Impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. The pressure was on. It was not, we're sitting at the feet of the pure devotee. And Prabhupada, and one devotee said to Prabhupada, "Oh Prabhupada, I always want to sit at your feet." And Prabhupada said, "That will be difficult because my feet are always moving." So, yes. Gurudas, Yamuna, thrown into Vrindavan, building that Krishna Balaram temple. Impossible, impossible. Cement, forget it. It is not available. Sorry. There are government restrictions. There is no cement. No, you cannot get it. No, very sorry. It is not possible. Yes, it is only reserved for government practice. No, go to the district magistrate, meet him personally, cultivate him, convince him somehow or other. Get it done. Do what Prabhupada did in the war. The paper is reserved. But I have to print my magazine, my Back to Godhead magazine. Sorry, sir, but there is no paper. All paper is reserved for the war. Exactly. Prabhupada went to the biggest officer, met him personally, and said, "Yes, paper reserved for the war. Then it must be given to me because my paper will end the war." And he got his paper. And he printed that 1944 Back to Godhead magazine. Incredible. And he addressed it, the frenzy of love and the frenzy of hate. The love for one's own country produces the hate for another country. Boma Ijjadi, identifying with the place of birth, Srimad Bhagavatam said. Prabhupada cut through the illusion in his first, in that 1944 magazine, addressing the issue of the day. Oh yes, he was relevant. He was not just preaching this philosophy. Satsarup is describing how an old friend came to meet him at a storefront. And this old friend was just in the mood of old times and remembering some music they used to listen to. And then Satsarup was saying, these days, we are hearing from scriptures that are 5,000 years old. You know what I mean? Prabhupada is speaking from scriptures that are 5,000 years old. And his friend said, I would rather deal with things that are relevant today. But that very same knowledge, Prabhupada proved, is completely relevant today. And nothing else. Nothing is new. Nothing is new. The sun is still rising. The sun is still setting. People are still taking births. People are still growing old. Disease is still there. And death is also still there. And then again birth. Nothing is changing. Life after life. The same. And Prabhupada spread this philosophy everywhere. With faith. With so much faith. Prabhupada said, Na jayate mriyate vakadachin. The soul cannot die. Asochana vasochastam prakyavadam sabasase. So what are you mourning, O Arjuna? For what is not worthy of grief? Yes, death. Death, Prabhupada said. The soul doesn't die. And the body doesn't die either. Because it was never alive in the first place. It's just dead matter. It's the soul that moves it around. It is the soul that moves these molecules around. On their own, they have no life. Therefore, the body, what is death? That the soul leaves the body that's already dead. It never was alive in the first place. Prabhupada would just write off death just like that as something insignificant. Prabhupada spoke about anarthas. He spoke about impurities in the heart, stumbling blocks in the heart, and he said the whole material world is an anartha. He just deleted the material world. Write it off. Okay, best use of a bad bargain then. Let's somehow or other use this limited material body, right? And use it for transcendental purposes. And then one can taste the full transcendental bliss, although the body is useless. It is useless. We drag it along and somehow or other we try and do something with it, and we can do so little. Such hard work in the material world, so little result. But Prabhupada taught the ancient story of the sparrow that lost its eggs to the ocean. And the sparrow went to the ocean and said, return my eggs. The ocean didn't bother to respond. Then the sparrow said, if you don't return my eggs now, I will drink your water. Ocean was not impressed. But the little sparrow began. Drops. And when Garuda heard about this sparrow, then Garuda, he took interest. feeling compassion for that small bird. And Garuda came and said, return those eggs or I will drink your water. Yes, Mr. Garuda, of course, Mr. Garuda. Here are some eggs for you. Is there anything else you would like, Mr. Garuda? In this way, we are trying, small human beings, small jivas, Prabhupada alone, an old man with a body that was already finished before he arrived in America, already heart attacks on the boat. I mean, really, 70 years old, you try it, let's see, right? Let's see. Some of us are getting close. Say, all right, now we have to start. Akila. Soon, you have to travel all over the world. And when we can again, and preach Krishna consciousness. We'll even give you a danda if you need support. But Prabhupada did. He did. At that time when people retire, at that time when everyone else as well take a step back, Prabhupada did not. That's when he got into gear. Right? When others slow down, Prabhupada got into gear. Didn't mean he wasn't old, but somehow or other, Krishna was there. As Garuda joined the little sparrow, Krishna joins the devotee. And the devotee who is trying to drink the entire ocean, Krishna will do it. Krishna will help. The devotee who's trying to make the whole world Krishna consciousness, Krishna will help. Krishna will make it possible. Prabhupada had firm faith. Krishna is here. Only Krishna can do this. How can I, sitting on the Jaladuta, how can I convince these people? It is not possible. What can I say to them? They are totally addicted to all the sinful activities. I can only think of one thing. I can only repeat your words. Srinvatam swakata Krishna punya sravana kirtanam hridyantastovi abhadrani vidunati saritsatam. He began to recite verses from Bhagavatam. And that faith he had. If I repeat your words, then it will be done. If we give people your words, Yara deke tara kaha Krishna upadesh, Amar agyay guru haye tara e desh. Yes, whomever we meet, give them this Krishna upadesh, this knowledge about Krishna, the instructions of Krishna, and then in this way it can be done. People can change. Harisori was Prabhupada's servant. But at one point, Harisori came to Prabhupada and said, "Oh, Prabhupada, I want to go and preach." Prabhupada was not happy. He didn't want to lose his servant. So he said, You preach? What can you preach? He said, "You cannot preach." He said, "Only I can preach." He said, "What can you preach?" But in book distribution, it is Prabhupada who is preaching. Then we are simply carrying and letting Prabhupada preach and letting Prabhupada transform and touch people's lives. Oh yes. Sooner or later, a book comes in the picture. Sooner or later, a book will make the difference. These are Prabhupada's ecstasies at night in deep meditation. Prabhupada built the bridges between the material world and the spiritual world. Prabhupada said, I used a karate tactic. He said, I used a karate tactic. I would just keep on hitting on the same place. Just keep on hitting on the same place. Yes. Oh, I read these books. And as soon as I read these books, I was thinking, this is serious. This is something, you can't do it half. As soon as I read these books, I could see, this means business. Either you surrender or not. I was thinking, well, so I guess I want then. I decided to not surrender. But somehow or other, this Hare Krishna came back again and again. I couldn't get rid of it. It just came back. They were everywhere. I'm on a bus. There's an empty seat next to mine. This Hare Krishna comes and sure enough sits next to me. I crawled into the wall of the bus. I tried to hide. He was looking at me. Oh my God, a hippie. I looked at him. Hare Krishna. We never spoke. He never gave me a card. He just looked at me. Oh God, a karmi. I looked at him. Oh my God, an extraterrestrial. If he would have given me a card to the Sunday feast, maybe I would have gone because I was attracted. And that attraction brought me again to Prabhupada's books, and they hammered me. In these books, Prabhupada said, if you want to call yourself sincere, and if you accept this as truth, and if you are sincere, then you have to surrender. Otherwise, you're not sincere. I realized, if I don't surrender, then I'm not sincere. I couldn't live with that. So I felt forced. I felt they were twisting my arm. These books were forcing me to take it. I didn't want to. I thought it was too much. Walking around in a pink dress and all that, and bald head, too far out. I mean, couldn't spiritual life be a bit more normal? Right? But not in the age of Kali. Because what is normal in the age of Kali is rotten to the core, is sick, is weird, is off. Everything. What your mother feeds you, my little baby, is not the right thing. Yes, it's wrong. And it goes on and on. It's all wrong. No wonder. The clothes are wrong. The way people speak is wrong. It is very interesting how English became the world language. Because in English, there is no distinction. Everybody is you. Right? You. You for your dog, you for God. Hey, you. And it's the one language where you can speak in one syllable words. Hey, man, how are you? Where you go? What you want? What you do? How you feel? What you say? Right? One syllable words. Only Kali Yuga. Right. Ready for Kali Yuga. And Kali Yuga is everywhere. Everywhere. All over. I came to Johannesburg for the first time. And I went to Hillbrow where the temple was. And I went around the corner and there was a bar. And it was called Kali Yuga. I say, wow. And I looked inside and it was Kali Yuga. It was. But not only in the bar. It was everywhere, Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga all over the place. And we have rough Kali Yuga, and we have civilized Kali Yuga. We have very cultured Kali Yuga. But Kali Yuga it is. Yes. So the disease is deep. And now we know that it is within us. Now we know that Prabhupada has brought us the highest, the most wonderful gift. And now we know, that we are corrupted. Now we know that we are affected by the age of Kali. Now we know. We have met ourselves. In 1966, the devotees were waiting for Prabhupada to come down. It was a long wait. There was a long kirtan. Prabhupada was upstairs, still not coming down. Then that the kirtan and another kirtan, and then they thought, well, okay. They asked Kirtanananda, the only sannyasi to speak. And Kirtanananda said, where were we? Where were we 1 year ago? Where were we even 6 months ago? But now we are all here with effulgent faces because of the association of a pure devotee. And that's it. This is from an early Back to Godhead magazine, and the whole magazine was about Prabhupada and about a new temple, and we just opened a new temple. A success story here, and another success here, and another success here. We're taking over the world. Man, we are taking over the world. If we are pure devotees, we can take over the world in 18 days. You don't hear that anymore. You used to hear that all the time. Now, nobody says that anymore because we met ourselves. We met our own corruption. We met our own weakness. We all had our dark moments, and now we realize these teachings are so great, and it is all so difficult, actually, to really live like this. The philosophy is not complicated. It's quite simple. Just be a pure devotee. And Prabhupada says, and this is how you do it. And then we say, tomorrow. Tomorrow. And tomorrow we say again, tomorrow. I'll surrender tomorrow. No. Okay, I'll surrender after the lecture. No. Now. Hey. Ouch. This is too difficult. I'm not ready yet. This is holding us back. And where are we now as a movement? To what extent have we actually become sincere followers of Prabhupada? 11 o'clock at night, Prabhupada was translating, invited his disciple, come and sit next to me. He said, oh Prabhupada, it's 11 o'clock. I'm tired. Prabhupada, I have to go to bed because tomorrow I have a full day of service. Prabhupada said, I'm not going to bed. He said, yeah, but Prabhupada, but you are a pure devotee. Why are you not a pure devotee? Because we stubbornly don't want to be. We don't want to be. We want to hold on to these sinful things. We've hidden them deep inside. Outside, Govindam Adipurusham. But deep inside, still hidden. It has to go. It has to go. On this day of Srila Prabhupada's disappearance, what more can we do than to recommit ourselves? Than to say, yes, Srila Prabhupada, we've understood. We understood what you wanted. You made it clear. You made it clear. There's no confusion. It's not complicated to understand. But we don't want to, Srila Prabhupada, we don't want to do it. Can we on this day actually change? Can we try to make that commitment? Every year in the evening in Srila Prabhupada's room in Vrindavan, we are commemorating. The big bed that stands in Prabhupada's room wasn't always there. That was just put there in the final days. Otherwise, that was Prabhupada's darshan room. His bedroom was upstairs. But in the final days, that's where the bed was. And every year, the bed is decorated and with flowers, and a whole flower house is built on the bed. And then there's Prabhupada's picture. And around Prabhupada's picture, there is his chadar, his grey woolen chadar. And then at 7:25, there is the arati offered to Srila Prabhupada at the moment of his departure, which took place on 14 November 1977. These days, usually Gopal Krishna Maharaj is offering that arati. He's the GBC for Vrindavan. And so senior. And then, after the arati, Gopal Krishna Maharaj takes the chadar of Srila Prabhupada's picture and personally goes around. He loves that service and puts the chadar on everyone's head, and he pushes it down also. And you feel the weight of that chadar on your head. And whenever I feel the weight of that chadar on my head, I'm thinking, now it's all of us who have to do it. Now it's all of us who have to take care of this mission. Now it's all of us who have to bring Krishna consciousness into this world. Now it's all of us who have to do. Prabhupada alone could do more than we can do all together. But now it's our turn. Some are thinking, shall I be a brahmachari? Shall I get married? Brahmachari get married, and counting the buttons. Some are thinking, shall I serve in Japan or shall I serve in the Heimat? We don't care. We don't care. Serve. Make a choice. Choose an ashram, but serve. Take this mission. Do something. Do something. We are now seeing so many disciples of Srila Prabhupada who are now old. And now we're looking back at what they've done. And so many, they really did something. They opened temples, right? They developed projects. They made it big. They did something. They didn't sit still. They distributed books. They made devotees. They did something. Now, what are we going to do? That is the question on this day, really, because we have inherited Srila Prabhupada's mission. On this disappearance day. This is our inheritance. And yes, there's the old story of 3 sons who received an inheritance, and the first one took the money and squandered it. The second one looked after the money very carefully and kept it very carefully. And the third one used it and expanded it. And that's what Prabhupada wanted. That whatever he gave us, that we maintain it and expend it. And that is really the true meditation on this day. What we can contribute to expand Krishna consciousness in our own way, whatever that is, but with lots of enthusiasm and lots of hard work, and there's very little time. What are we going to do? Some are going to distribute books today. Yay! May you distribute the books and tell people it's a special day today. It's a special day. This is the day that the writer of these books, yes, completed his life's work. He put so much in these books. You must read it. Yes, distribute them. Distribute Krishna consciousness. So I thank you very much. I've taken a lot of time, and I've asked yesterday Akila Prabhu to speak, because after all, he is the disciple of Srila Prabhupada who's present here, and it is the duty of every disciple of Srila Prabhupada to speak on this day, and it is my duty to hear. So I thank you very much. I'm getting down from this seat now. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
As you mentioned in your wonderful class, where would we be now if Srila Prabhupada had not come into our life? It would be very, very different. Now we are sitting here amongst the devotees and live in this wonderful temple, which is non-different from Vaikuntha. Srila Prabhupada said, we have the best association of the world with all these friendly devotees who are supporting each other in their endeavors to become Krishna conscious. Wonderful prasadam. We can read Srila Prabhupada's books. We have the only meaningful activity in the world, perform devotional service. The only activity that's not meant for the body, but for Krishna, who is the master of our souls. Srila Prabhupada once said, ISKCON is non-different from my body. I remember that sometimes when there are certain persons trying to criticize ISKCON, that went wrong and that went wrong and this is not being done and this and that and the other thing. Prabhupada said, ISKCON is non-different from my body. So those persons who are criticizing ISKCON, and especially criticizing the devotees, they're on the path to the nether regions, like Swami once sang. They are on the way to the nether regions. This movement, which we have been brought into by Krishna's and Srila Prabhupada's mercy, is non-different from Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada's creation. Prabhupada started with distributing back to Godheads himself. He went around in Vrindavan, Delhi also, I guess, and he went into the tea stalls, small shops where people sit and drink tea. Prabhupada sat next to them and started a talk, and then he presented his magazine, and people felt obliged because they had experienced what a wonderful person Srila Prabhupada is. So they took this. Srila Prabhupada saved the money and he bought paper. Maharaj was telling how Prabhupada had to endeavor so much, go to the top person to get these papers. And he put it on he had some rickshawala who brought this paper to a printer. And so Srila Prabhupada, he got his first books printed. After Prabhupada was proofreading himself. Here's one set of the books that Srila Prabhupada, for which Srila Prabhupada brought the paper himself to the printer, which he proofread, and which Srila Prabhupada put into some boxes. Finally, Prabhupada had 200 sets ready. With these 200 sets of Srimad Bhagavatam, 3 books, Prabhupada went to America. Some devotees had told him, "Oh, you cannot go there. Everything is polluted. All the food is polluted by meat and horrible substances." So Srila Prabhupada, he took a bag of grains with him. He thought, well, if there's nothing to eat, I'll have this bag of grains to maintain somehow. And Prabhupada went alone to America, the most powerful country at that time in the world. And Prabhupada did not compromise. One devotee was telling, he was walking on the street, and he said, there was this person who appeared like this. What is some person out of a fairy tale, some oriental fairy tale. Now Prabhupada was wearing a dhoti, a chadar, the special hat, Swami hat, devotees called it, and he had these rubber shoes made out of plastic, and in front they are a little bent upwards. Special, looking special. And Prabhupada did not compromise. His god brothers had told him, "Oh, Swami, you have to Prabhupada, what they called him, Abai, at that time, you have to wear Western clothes so that the people can appreciate you, that they don't see the difference so strongly." And Prabhupada said, "No, I'm not." And Prabhupada did not compromise. Alone, without compromising, with just 200 sets of books and a small bag of grains, he went, like on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna, he was going alone to attack the whole army, to get at a certain person. And Srila Prabhupada walked in the streets of New York. He went to several bookshops, brought his sets there. Sometimes they sold. So he had a very, very small, meager income and maintained somehow. And 1 whole year, nothing happened, no success. And Srila Prabhupada said sometimes he wanted to go back. He thought of going back to America, to India, but still he went on. One day somebody came, "Oh, are you from India?" Looked like. And Prabhupada, I wanted to go to India to look for a guru. And Prabhupada said, "Yes, I give these classes on Bhagavad Gita 3 times a week." Mm-hmm. And later on, Prabhupada called him our Professor Howard Wheeler. And later on, he became Hayagriva initiated. And he brought his friends. They came to Prabhupada's very small room that this Dr. Mishra had allowed Prabhupada to use inside of a big skyscraper. There were no windows, just a small room inside the building. The janitor of this house, he stole Prabhupada's typewriter and his Bhagavad Gita manuscript. There was nothing else to steal. He took that. And Prabhupada was there, writing again a new edition of Bhagavad Gita. And these persons, these young men who were searching for something, who were not satisfied with the life that was offered to them by society, they came, listened, and so slowly it developed. Srila Prabhupada, he did not really leave us when he left on this day, 1977. Prabhupada said, "I will live forever in my books." And we heard Srila Prabhupada books. He said, "My books will be the law books for the next 10,000 years." With the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, these 10,000 years started. 500 years have passed. And there are, I don't know actually how many devotees there are all over the world. Some 10,000 of disciples. Prabhupada, he initiated about 5,000 devotees. 500 or something, I don't know, 450 are left still. And Srila Prabhupada's books, they will be present for the coming 10,000 years. In these 500 years passed since the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in these 500 years there have been several acharyas, so many different acharyas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, who prepared to make this prophecy in the Chaitanya Charitamrita come true. Prithivite Achayata Nagararikra. The holy name of Krishna will be heard all over the world. They worked on making this true. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj at the first meeting, when Prabhupada came in as a young man, as a student, offered his obeisances when he was sitting in front of Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, he asked, "So you are educated young men, why don't you go and preach the message of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the English language?" That was the idea Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj gave Prabhupada at the first meeting. And Prabhupada, he took this very seriously. There's one book one part of the Lilamrita, a lifetime of preparation. Prabhupada, he prepared his whole life. He was working hard to get this paper, to get the paper, to get these books printed, and he succeeded finally. His books are printed all over the world and sold by the millions. How was it? One resolution of the devotees. This marathon, 2 million books. Isn't it? 2 million more books. When Srila Prabhupada was very sick, we were dreaming. The devotees were praying. They were advised to pray. "Oh Krishna, if you so please heal Srila Prabhupada. please make Srila Prabhupada healthy again. And Srila Prabhupada left this world in a most exemplary way, in Vrindavan, surrounded by devotees, hearing the holy name, and up to his last moment he was translating the 10th canto, this Brahma Vimohana Lila, how Brahma, he was illusioned and stealing the cows and cowherd boys. Prabhupada was translating. He could not hold the microphone anymore. The devotees, his disciple, they held the microphone. They read and they read the original Bhagavatam to this set of Bhagavatam that Prabhupada had, the commentaries of the Acharyas, and Prabhupada he spoke into the microphone. He went on speaking his commentaries, translating up to the last minute. And then Srila Prabhupada said Hare Krishna, and he left. But Prabhupada said, in my books I will live forever. In this ISKCON that Prabhupada created by his managerial ideas, by his arrangements, by Prabhupada's mercy, we are sitting in this temple. This is Prabhupada's work. This is non-different from Srila Prabhupada, actually. One small thing, when the first Murti of Srila Prabhupada was installed in Switzerland during a Ratha Yatra. There, Jagannath deities were pulled around in the evening, the Murti of Srila Prabhupada was worshipped the first time. There was a class, and the Murti of Prabhupada was sitting there, and I went up and took the chamara and started fanning Srila Prabhupada. And then in this evening, we went and we left the temple, Switzerland, the farm, and on the way somewhere we stopped, took rest, and that night I was dreaming of Srila Prabhupada. There was like a hospital bed, and I knew there's Prabhupada. And then Srila Prabhupada, he came up, and he was sitting erect in this hospital bed. And I knew Prabhupada is not deceased, or he had not to leave. He did not leave. Srila Prabhupada is still healthy and present. Once I dreamt of Srila Prabhupada. When I wanted to put a garland around the Murti of Srila Prabhupada, and then I saw Srila Prabhupada. He held his head. This Murti is not different from Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is with us all the time. We live our lives according to Srila Prabhupada's desires, according to his instructions. We read Srila Prabhupada's books, we get the inspiration, we get the direction directly from Srila Prabhupada, reading his wonderful books, Prabhupada said, if you want to know me, read my books. And this is possible not just now, only 500 years after the disappearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. This will be possible for the whole world. This movement is increasing rapidly. So many, like Maharaj was telling, temples are opened here and there and everywhere. A few years ago, Russia was closed up, just ruled by atheists. And now there are thousands of devotees in every small village practically. Here was one devotee, and Russia. Why you come from Russia? Where? Blip blip something. I never heard the name before. And I said, how many devotees are there? Well, about 1,000. In every village there are 1,000 devotees in Russia, practically. This Srila Prabhupada's books, they make so many devotees. Prabhupada said how does it go? You can measure the greatness of the devotees by looking at how many devotees, how many persons he turned into devotees. And Prabhupada's books will be the law books for the coming 10,000 years, 500 years only. There are tens of millions of devotees all over the world. Something. Practically waiting to become devotees also, not tens of millions yet, but tens of millions of books have been distributed, like small time bombs. They are sitting in the houses and waiting to be taken by the right persons. So after some time, the whole world, it is said, after some time, these 10,000 years, they will become like the golden age, like Satya Yuga. That means everybody practically will be a devotee. And this will take place by Srila Prabhupada's influence, not by his books, by his movement, by the instructions he gave, how to lead one's life. What else is there to do? What else makes sense? I was at home, at my parents' place. I was reading the Bhagavad Gita, and there was this sentence, Prabhupada writes, if without Krishna consciousness, this life is spoiled. Without Krishna consciousness, this life is spoiled. Useless. What's the use? You work for this body. After some time, this body will get old. It will get ugly. It will create so many problems. This body, knee problems, artificial knee, all kinds of things. High blood pressure recently. Heavy. Krishna is detaching us from this body. Therefore, all these problems are coming. All these diseases. People getting afraid. Oh, my body, my only shelter. Now also this body is not safe anymore. What do I do? And then if somebody comes and offers a real alternative, people still there. Devotees come up with these masks. Must be heavy. They take the books. Wonderful. Okay, I don't want to take too much of your time. So we thank Srila Prabhupada and we try to live according to his desires, according to the presence that he gave us. These wonderful books, his instructions, his presence in the murtis, and also his presence in the devotees. All the devotees are such wonderful persons because they are reflecting the qualities of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Oh yeah. Yeah. Maharaj. To whom?
To you.
Yes.
Maybe also to Maharaj. Yeah. Because Maharaj was mentioning in his lecture that if we don't...
Maharaj was mentioning. Maharaj, would you like to answer, please? Huh?
Yeah. I spoke process